The Altered Tumult Championships flipped the meta upside down, and no one saw it coming. Underdogs went on top, powerhouses crumbled, and new strategies are being discovered. But is the game headed in the right direction, or is this just the beginning of chaos? Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to Decks and Bytes. Today we're going to be recapping my Tumult Championship. I ended up going 3-0 in Swiss during the championship. So the first 3 rounds, I felt extremely confident. I know in a previous video I had said that I was going to play Afanas. I ended up switching to Sigismar simply because through playtesting, I ran into 2 problems that I didn't really have a solution for. The first was the lack of uniques. I did not have the physical cards that I needed to be competitive with the uniques that I had. The next is because of my unique not being where they need to be, I kept on coming up short in most games and not being able to close them out. So I ended up switching to Sigismar, and I believe that that was the best choice. Going into this, I knew that I was going to have an answer for aggro and control. What I wasn't planning for is someone completely changing their deck and playing a completely different style than they usually play, which was very smart on their behalf. The first 3 rounds felt really good. I was really happy that I decided to go with Sigismar, and having the ability to play lower cost units, especially in late game, as well as being able to get the token every turn, automatically makes your opponent have to put something in that lane, opening up another lane if they don't have an answer. So early game, I felt really strong. Late game, I felt pretty good. I know that that's not really Sigismar's strength, is late game. But with the spells that you run and also having these particular permanents, it allows for you to be competitive when it goes late. Going wide and using your characters kind of spread out the board, and then using your spells to use removal and kind of combat those bigger units. And then when it does come late game, you're able to still be competitive. Now, as I said, I went 3-0 in Swiss, felt extremely confident and strong. There was no one there that I really was concerned about simply because of the meta breakdown. And what kind of threw me for a loop was the fact that most people were not running like standard quote unquote decks. Let's just take Afanas and Yasmir. Someone running a very spell heavy deck. But this person was running a very strong character heavy deck. And same with Bravos, where you're really relying on the boost and trying to boost your characters so that you can go tall through boost. I just felt like my deck could really go head to head with any of the decks that were there, which was evident in the first 3 rounds where I went undefeated. So being first seat, I ended up playing the 4th seat because it was a 4-person playoff. And that's where things did not go very well for me. Because other thing that I noticed about Afanas is sometimes it's not as consistent, where Sigismar seems to be more consistent because of the draw ability, which we'll get into more later, where I think that they went and did the suspensions that they did. Because when you give Sigismar the draw ability, he's already going wide, but then you're now giving him more cards. It makes it more, 1, consistent, but then 2, have more flexibility to address different issues. And what happened with me was I had just a bad game, and it was the best of 1. If we probably play the best of 3, I probably win 2 out of 3. Unfortunately, being the best of 1, this individual had a very good unique, and I did not have a way to remove that unique from the board. And so that's what I ran into. They were running Taija, and they had a unique. The wording was something along the lines of, when another character joins my expedition, I am able to give another character anchored with a hand cost 3 or less. So what happened was this individual ran a lot of lower character cost units. By doing so, he was able to continuously give anchored to his characters and keep them on the board. Then you add on that I'm not drawing any removal through spells. He's keeping all of his characters and completely going very wide. And then all of his spells are there to keep his unique in play. So his whole deck is centered around 1 unique. He was able to continuously give character joins expedition, give another one anchored. Character joins expedition, give another one anchored. So he's playing a late game, he's going very wide, but if you just remove that card out of the game, none of those characters gain anchored, and so he's got a bunch of lower cost units that now do not have anchored. After that, I really wanted to try to dissect what I learned from this and what I took away. And I kind of, not the bass track, but I just want to talk about Afanas real quick and the inconsistencies that I found with him, because he does something very similar to Sigismar, where he runs lower cost units and he tries to keep them out there, where Sigismar really relies on getting more cards in his hand and playing units. Afanas really relies on spells to boost his units and allow them to go tall through boost and then keep the units that he has in play. Now, both of these heroes are still very viable. They're just not as strong as they were before because of the suspensions, which we're going to talk about. This particular deck that I'm running, as I said, I just didn't have the uniques to be able to support my characters, trying to keep them out there, as well as I didn't have enough boost ability to get them that tall. And as I already mentioned, the consistency part worried me. I ended up running this deck, and I think it's the best of both worlds, where you're able to get units out there, have a lot of lower cost units, so that way you're able to continuously get units out, your ability to play units and draw out cards from your deck, and then continuously put more units out there. So you're just going really wide. So two different strategies. Now, to get into the suspensions that have happened that have kind of handicapped these two decks, is the first is this one, where now you're no longer able to get draw by playing this card. And they kind of break down exactly what I'm saying, which is where you're going to try to easily play lower cost units. And so now, not being able to draw that card, you're not going to be able to do that. And then if you look at Afanas and his ability to remove fleeting and get a boost, and then use his ability to boost it as well, and then you pair that with this, where you're then going to get 3 or more boosts, you're going to be able to draw a card. So you're pretty much drawing a card almost every time if you get that combination. And it's kind of the same. They are different, but they did very similar things, where they were trying to get more cards in hand in order to boost your characters more. In Afanas' case, and in Sigismar's case, was really trying to focus on getting more cards so that you could play them. You're trying to play high quality characters for lower cost. And this strategy in both work really well, and they're very effective. We've seen them. If you look at the different breakdowns and you look at the different play styles, these two are by far were the best decks. And we see that with this, where the win rate for these two were way more than every other faction, and because of these two heroes by a lot. And you don't really want that to happen, where two factions, mainly two leaders, are the ones that are doing that. So they had to do something. This is their answer. Will this be the end of it? I don't know. But as I'm living proof, that does not mean if you just ran these heroes, you're automatically going to win, simply because of the unique situation and how strong uniques can be. And like I said, I ran into a very strong unique. I ended up falling short, and I took third, even though I went undefeated in Swiss and felt very confident and strong going into the championships. It didn't really matter. Give credit where credit's due. The individual I played was very high quality player and played extremely well. And you just can't have a bad game against a competitor that of his caliber and plays as well as he does. You just can't. And if you do, the result is you're probably going to lose. So what does this all mean? And what lessons did I kind of learn from this experience? And where do I think that this is going to take us moving forward into Worlds? Well, the first is, if you look at the most recent larger tournament, more than 100 people, and we look at the leaderboards here, you're going to see that Afanas is still here and Sigismar is still here, but they're not dominating like they were, where before we were seeing majority of top decks were one or the other. And every now and then you would sprinkle in another hero, but not very often. Now you are seeing a plethora of different heroes that are being played. And even heroes, I mean, look at this. 4-1, Kojo. Kojo seems like it's the new deck that, Kojo's whole thing is if we look at this deck list, you're really trying to focus on getting more cards in hand. You're trying to boost your characters and use your permanents to get those boosts, and by going tall and also having a little removal, but you're really focusing on going tall and using your characters to get the boost. That's a very strong strategy, and Kojo seems like they're doing it very well. If we go to Afanas, still very strong, still running a lot of spells, is just not as dominant as it was before, which is a very bright outlook. You don't want things like this happening, because it just deteriorates the gameplay and it makes the gameplay feel like you're always going against the same decks and kind of stagnated. We've seen this in other TCGs, where when one deck becomes too strong and is just dominating the meta, traditionally the game designers will step in and remove something out of play so that it opens up more leaders, heroes for them to be able to be played. And so there's a lot of optimism moving forward in the Worlds. I'm really glad that they decided to do Worlds this year. I know that some people had said that it's too early, but I don't think it is. Everything that they've been doing recently is what everybody expected them to be doing from the beginning back in December. I think having the marketplace, having print-on-demand services, having the ability to get your cards, play your cards, all of that, and as well as there being a competitive scene. There's a lot of individuals that want to be competitive. And if you don't, I've addressed this many, many times. You can go back and watch my videos. Now, one thing that I think has been a really bright light for me and has raised my optimism, because for me locally, there was only 2 places that you could play at. And one of them has quit playing altogether. They're not even doing pre-releases for the new set. The other place, majority of the time, there was like 2 or 3 people and up to 8, but most of the time it was like 4 or less. People have become more consistent with coming. There's a lot more optimism. A lot more people are flocking to the game. And just to share a personal story, I have went to 5 different TCGs events. Some of them were the same game, but 5 different events in 5 different areas. Most of them were at pro level or pro tier events. And I always have something altered with me. At all 5 different events, I've had people ask me questions about Altered, as well as people tell me that they just got into it, they're starting to play it, and that they're curious about where things are going to go. And to me, that's very optimistic that the game has now expanded organically to where people that are just discovering it on their own. And that's very positive. I've seen that time and time again from different events where people seem to be very excited. One, about the new set. There's a lot of excitement surrounding this new set. The new mechanics that are being introduced, like Scout, not only that, but being able to boost your characters inside of the reserve. And then the counters and all the permanents that are now going to be in play. The meta shift as far as the patches that they're doing and the suspensions that they're taking and how that's going to shift up the meta. I've just never seen a game go from where Altered was to what it is now, at least my local scene. Now, there is some criticism, and you can't talk about all the good and not at least address the bad. And the things that most people have told me, they tend to be more concerned and maybe kind of hesitant to get involved with Altered is, number 1, the inconsistency that we've experienced throughout the game. Number 2 is the marketing is not there, at least in the US. The marketing is very small, and it doesn't seem like it's being pushed very hard here in the States. And number 3 is that not having a local scene and not having a competitive scene where you can go and play big events in different parts of the country has made people a little bit hesitant to get involved. Now, I think Worlds has changed that simply because you're competing for a spot to qualify for Worlds. But not only that, the game itself is evolving organically. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is this. They did a demo deck and event where you could try different decks. This was massive. I mean, we had 478 players attend a demo deck event online where these are new cards that people can play with. This is the current hype that is surrounding Altered, where they host a demo deck where you can just check out the new cards and play with them. This event, you couldn't even get into it. Within 30 minutes, it was already filled up. I tried to get into it, couldn't. And there's a lot of individuals that are being exposed to this because of events like this. I think that there's a lot of optimism around this new set. Altered has now, I would say, kind of stride because the game was going on a downward trajectory. A lot of people were kind of down on it. A lot of people were leaving, unlike now where we are seeing players come back. We're seeing new players. So there's just a lot of optimism surrounding Altered right now. And I think that Whispers from the Maze is going to be the first big set released that's going to shift the tides of this game. But that's my personal opinion. Let me know down below what you guys think. What do you think about the suspensions? What do you think about the future of Altered? But that's all I got for you guys today. Thanks again for watching. Like and subscribe. See you on the next one.